Hi everybody, it's crazy, it's Monday, and it's time for the UPBGE video of the week. Now, before I get started, gotta give a shout out to my trust because you guys rock. To my crazy fam, I love you guys. And to my patrons, thank you for your continued support. Now, didn't have a video last week and last Monday because it was Halloween and I gotta take my granddaughter out trick-or-treating. So, y'all get to get a 30-minute video this week instead of a 15. So we're up to episode number 38, and we left off with expressions last week, and we ended close towards down the bottom of the page. If you're following along in the book, we left off on page 38 at the bottom. It's called Fake Flipper Animations with Expressions. I'll go ahead and bring that up so you can see what I'm talking about, and I'll go ahead and read it, and let's get started. Okay, so in the accompanying material, you can see a simulation of the flipper animation mode implemented using the property mode instead. This is done in two different ways. One with an expression controller, and another with an NAND and AND controllers, and an expression in a property actuator. It shows the flexibility of the system and is a nice way to regulate the speed of your animation. Now, if you want to find out where they were talking about where you in the materials, it's in the book chapter 3, controller expressions flipper.blend. If you got all the files when you first got this book, you can get the files. It's actually in chapter 3, and just look for controller expressions flipper. All right. So now we're up to Python controller. Now, a lot of people were said in the comments and also said on my server that Python, that's a little bit too much, too much code work. I don't want to do too much code work, and I get that because I was the same way when I first started, and I'm still kind of that way a little bit now because I'm still trying to figure it all out. But I got to learn a little bit of Python and got to figure it out. If you'd like to check that out later on in the video, I'll pop it up somewhere over here, I think. Usually, yeah, I think it's over here. No, not over here. But anywho, so Python isn't as hard as you're thinking. Actually, Python is a very easy language to learn. If I can learn it, anybody can learn it. So let's do a little bit of investigating on the Python controller. Now, if you're wondering what the Python controller is, let's see if I get this. Yeah, there it is. Okay, the Python controller is this one right here. If you hit Python in there, you'll see that you got script and you've got module. We're going to go more into detail with all these, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start reading from that. It says, okay, with a Python controller, you can evaluate sensors and activate actuators just as you would do with other controllers. You can indeed replace any of the tests, logic switches, or expressions by an equivalent in Python. Actually, not only can the other controllers be replaced by this, but also most of your logic breaks as well. Chapter 7 is entirely dedicated to how and when to use this controller. Even if you are not into programming, we recommend you read the introduction sections of this chapter to understand its differences and advantages. What it's saying is, check out chapter 7. It's believe it or not, Python isn't that hard of a programming language, and once you start to learn it and you understand, a lot of the wordplay, so to speak, it actually becomes a lot better. Okay. All right. So there are two types of Python controllers. Okay. There's two types: script and module. Okay. The script part of the controller, it says this will take an internal text data block and run it as a script. So what it's talking about, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull this down because we're not using this. Okay, this right here is Python code. Okay, this is what it's just a text block. Okay, if I went over here, okay, you see how it says module.py. That's what comes with 0.2.5, so don't worry about that. So we're just going to put a new one. Okay, now you see you got a blank text here. Okay, and if you move over to here, these right here give it different things. Okay, this will give it the numbering. Okay, so if every time you hit a line, if you notice numbers come up. Okay, this is word wrap, and this one is the text formatting. Okay, so if I, if I put, if right now, oops, get up in there, if, you notice that there's nothing, nothing that does it. With Python, if turns a different color. Okay, so that's just some of the things you'll learn about Python. It's okay, don't get scared, because this right here can be your friend too. Okay, all right, so we got script, okay, which is uses a text file. Okay, a module, this will call a module from this, hang on, let me put my mouse there so you can see that it's module. Okay, this will call a module from a script file inside or outside your game file. The module mode has a debug option that forces the module to be recompiled every time you call it. This is really slow, but allows you to do changes in your script while your game is playing. Okay, so if you have a module, if you notice that you lose that thing, you have to actually write it in there. So if you had a module, which would be, oops, let's get rid of that and unlink, get rid of that one, unlink. Okay, like this one right here. Okay, a module is this right here. Okay, well, not just this, but you can actually use parts of this file as a module. You can say the update. If you want it to be an update module, you'd say update. Okay, you'd put update in here. Okay, that all lowercase, DAG. Okay, so it would be, I believe it's .main. Yeah, so you'd put .main. Okay, and that would set that every time you did, you had a sensor go into it, it would do that, or a output going out to an actuator. When something would happen, this right here would update. It would make this part update at this point. Okay, but you can also run the entire script by just clicking on it, because it's right here, module.py. You don't have to have py. Heck, you can name it just module. Notice that over in here, it shows module as well. Okay. All right. Which came first, the controller or the controller? For scripts, the order in which the controller is executed matters. In cases where you need a script to run before the others, you can use the mark option present in the controller header, which is, I believe it's this right here. No, right here. Okay, it'll set it as first, or this right here is the actual mark. Okay, that's right there is saying that this will run first. Okay, your script will run first before anything else. If you don't have that set, then it just runs it whenever this gets triggered. Okay. This is commonly used for Python controllers running scripts that are responsible for the initialization of your game variables and settings. Okay. Now, we're going to go on over to actuators. Actuators are fun. And like I said, this is going to be a 30-minute, and we're only 8 minutes in. I'm going to take a drink, because I got a bit of scratchy throat today. Okay, so let's go on with actuators. Last but not least, there are the actuators. The trouble you've taken setting up sensors, controllers, and noodle linking will finally pay off. The actuators are grouped per themes, scene, game, object, actions, and so on. And their names and applications may surprise you. For example, did you know the camera actuator doesn't have to be used by a camera object? Okay, because it has a camera actuator right here. Okay, we recommend that you familiarize yourself with all of the options and sub-options and experiment with them as much as you can. While some effects work by themselves, for example, the game actuator, let's close that one out. Let's find the game actuator up here. There, okay. So, see, yes, okay, game actuator. Some will be more useful when combined together. For example, motion and action actuators. Okay, so motion, okay, and action. And then you got action right there. Okay, so these are here, when they're combined together. Like say if you had this one combined with that, and these can do different things. Okay. All right. The header for actuators is similar to the sensors. Like the sensors, the name is an essential element. So let's bring back up action real quick. Okay. This right here is, very important because you have to name it. It's essential to name this. Okay, because if say for example you're running a script and you call the action and you have action and action and action, it won't know which one it is. You actually got to make sure that you have them labeled properly, so that way you know this is the run action or this is the walk action. Basically this is your animation set. Okay. Let's see. It just shows it right here. Okay, you can also see the pin, a special option available to be used with controller states. That's this little guy right here. You can pin it there. Okay. Okay, so in the name field, just right here is the name. This can be used to identify your actuator. Even when it's not expanded, it's also used from Python scripts to activate it. So remember, you gotta have this name in your script, not just something you made up here. If it's in your script, it's gotta be here. Okay, pin. That's this little guy right here. Okay, when working with a state machine system, you can use the state option on top of the actuator list to show only the actuators linked to controllers from visible states. With the pin option in the actuator header, you can set your actuator to be always visible. So when you set this pin like this, that means it will be visible in every state you look in. Okay? Doesn't matter what state you put it in, it will be in that state. If you don't, okay, now watch. Okay, well, I guess it doesn't. I guess I lied. Well, it's supposed to hold it in each one. It should be visible in each state. All right, so action. That's what we're on. Camera, lights, action. That should be lights, camera, action. And let the animation begin. Whether you want to animate your armature or you want to play a pre-recorded action, you will end up using this actuator. An action can contain different F-curves, controlling various object properties. If you split your property curves in different actions, you can control them one at a time. For example, leave size and object color in the same action, and you can have a banana that is green when it's still small and turns yellow while growing. You can also have the same property present in multiple actions and use individual actions to store different animations. Okay, short actions in the long run. Before the animation system redesign in Blender, it was only possible to have multiple actions for armatures and shape keys. Therefore, for any other animated action, people would create one really long action with different animations in different frame ranges. This still works well, but it's hard to manage if you ever need to change the length of one of the animations. You would have to update the start and end of all the actuators that were playing the other sub animations. You may find yourself still using this technique in order to organize your file. However, sometimes a long action can be easier to manage than multiple small ones. Think about that. The actuator will let you pick an action, set the frame range, and configure how you want to play it. Okay, so basically, all this right here. You can have the start frame, end frame, your action, which we don't have any yet. You can do different play functions, so on and so forth. Okay. See, if you are planning to reuse this actuator, for example, for linked shared logic bricks, you can leave the action blank and set it through the Python API during the game engine. In Chapter 4, Animation, we will use this actuator in a series of tutorials. So next chapter after this one, we're going to actually be going into that one. We're going to be doing animations. And that one's a hard one for a lot of people to do animations, because animations are very complex. You gotta, rig your character. You gotta make sure it's working right. Everything. It's a, everybody thinks it's a tedious process. I think it's going to be a fun chapter to read up on, which will actually help us out. Okay. Okay. So what can be animated? Some of the animations you create in Blender can be used in the game engine. The same result you see in the viewport when you play them back with Alt-A, you can also get in the game engine. That includes armature poses, shape keys, and some of the properties of the object, material, light, and camera, as following. You can do pose. Okay, any recorded sequence in an animation object can be played. It's common to have different animated cycles: walking, running, jumping, tired walking, taking a break, and to alternate between them during an event. When using multiple action actuators, you may have an action currently playing when you start a new one. To make the transition smoothly, you can set the blend in and priority to respectively blend the animations for a certain number of frames. Okay, so they're talking about this blend in right here and this priority right here. Okay. All right, so let's see, for sometimes, okay, for a certain number of frames, and to play the new animation on top of the old one. Okay, so you can blend it in to where if you're running and then the character starts to get tired, so you got running tired, then you got running wore out. Okay, the character's because it's wore out. Okay, and then it'll go back once your character gets that certain amount of time that it's gonna, stop the character from running. Once that runs out, then the character can run again, so they jump back up and start running again. So that's one of the things you can use. Okay, shape keys. Similar to poses, you can play the shape key actions created in the dope sheet editor with control over the blending, priority, frames, and so on. There is even a continue option common to both that allows you to start the animation when you left the last time you activated it. Sorry about that. All right, so remember that you don't play the individual shape keys, but rather the action that stores their influence on each other over time. Okay, did you get that? Okay, a lot of people like to use shape keys. I have never learned shape keys, so we're all in the same boat as this. I've never learned that one, so that one's going to be a fun one when we get into animation. So keep that kind of in mind, because shape keys, I heard, do really well, and it actually helps you blend in a lot better than trying to use these guys right here. Okay, because you got to know specific numbers here. Okay, I know in shape keys, all you got to do is play around the dope sheet and work with it. We'll go into that a little bit later on. Okay, well, not today, but when we get to chapter 4. Okay, object properties: location, rotation, scale, color, and physics properties. Location, rotation, dampening, and anisotropic friction. Okay, don't know what that is, but yeah. Okay, so material, diffuse color. Okay, so you can change the color of a material. Light, energy, color, distance, attenuation, spot size, and spot blend. So you can actually use light, and make it into a flashlight that, that you can dim on and off or turn off and on, stuff like that. Okay, camera, start, end clipping, and focal length. So you can actually have it go into a cutscene, and the character's doing a dance or something, and then it goes back to your character. That's how they do cutscenes. What cannot be animated? Unfortunately, not everything we can animate inside Blender can be animated in the game engine. More specifically, the following elements cannot be animated with the action actuator. Drivers cannot, scene, world, remaining object, material, camera, and light properties. Be aware that this may change in the near future, and some of these settings behave differently depending on the render mode, GLSL or multi-texture. Now, if you're working off of 0.2.0, you'll have, what was it at? Okay, multi-texture and GLSL. GLSL is better for the game, okay, because it actually runs better. Multi-texture, not so much. Okay, so whenever you're trying to build animations for a game, you definitely want to use GLSL. Okay, so make sure you do that. The one I'm using in 0.2.5 actually is set up for GLSL. Okay, and I believe if I bring the inboard out, let's see if I can bring it down. That's why. I don't care about that. Okay. There we go. Something happened. I just did something wrong. But usually you find it in display. I believe it's display. But mine doesn't have it, and neither one of mine have it. They're automatically set for GLSO. My buddy Day, I use one of his, and one of the ones that he recompiled and did some straightening that he thought would be good, and I liked it, so I did it. But I believe it's either in shading or display, so check in your in panel to see if it's in there. If you see that it's multi-texture, go ahead and switch it to GLSO, okay? And I believe you can also do it in your user preferences as well over in interface. Like I said, mine is automatically set, so they automatically took it out of 0.2.5 because it really didn't need it because that's all they ever use. Okay. All right. Let's see here. What are we sitting at? Oh, almost there. Okay. Animating more elements via scripting. Okay. Some scene settings such as shading mode, mouse cursor, and eye separation can be set through the Python API. The same is valid for world settings such as mist, background color, physics, and logic, maximum steps, and FPS. Okay, so you can animate quite a bit of stuff in Blender, and actually I believe you can animate almost just about everything nowadays. Okay, let's see, yeah. Okay, so object settings, right? If you are not animating an armature pose or a shape key, there are extra options you can use as below and highlighted in figure 3.7. Let me see if I can bring this up and take a look at see which one that is. That's the action actuator, so let's bring up the action again. Okay, so up here you got force and add is what it's talking about. It's these two right here. And local, okay. This right here is your local. I know that for a fact. Add and force are two other ones. So let's go into what force is. Sorry, I gotta scratch your throat, y'all. All right, so force. If your object is physical dynamic, you can apply the transformations, for example, location, as a mechanical force. This avoids the ghost effect of having objects trespassing each other when their new location overlaps. With force, they will simply collide. Okay, so you can actually make that collide. So if there's something on the character collides with something, this right here will actually make it stop, so they won't get stuck inside the wall. Okay. All right. So add, evaluating the F curves as relative values, or evaluate the F curves as relative values. This way, you can add the transformations on top of each other instead of setting a new position, size, and rotation. Okay, so you can actually set this to add, and it will add to it each time. Okay, local. Apply transformations in local or world coordinates. Okay, that's the same thing as, where's it at? It's down. Okay, it used to be in here. They might have changed that up. Yeah, right there. Okay. I know it was in here because I just had to find it. my old eyes, forgive me. Okay, so this right here is your transform orientation. Okay, and this is what it's talking about by local. If you have this set to local, then your cursors and stuff will be all different if you've edited or moved it around. Okay, right now this is just default, so this right here will do it. But if I said I went to local or global, okay, and I hit tab and I hit rotate X 90. Okay. Now, as you see in global, it's still the same. Okay. But watch this. Hit local. Okay. I guess I did it wrong. Okay. Let's see. Rotate X 90. Okay. Now, if you notice, things have changed. Okay. If you go back to global, it says, okay, everything's back the same, but it's not. If you go to local, that's what it's actually done because you actually change this up. So they tell you that whenever you're doing something in edit mode, it's better to do it in edit mode. That way you got to change to local. But if you're doing it in global, or if you're doing it outside without doing the edit, you're rotating just the actual object, you want to make sure that you change from global to local, because you got to find out which direction it actually is, because now this is up and down. As you see, that's not Z. It says Z here, but not here. This is your local direction. Trust me, that does cause an issue when you're trying to do it this way in a game, because when you grab it on Z, it's going from the local variant and it's going to start going this way instead of up. Okay, so keep that in mind. Local is very important. If you wanted to use the local variable, okay, if you wanted to use this, okay, instead of global, okay, which is this direction, you will click this to make it do so. All right, so it looks like we're getting close to the 30-minute mark. I'm going to leave it on play modes. That's actually 33, page 33, and we'll end it there with play modes, and we'll continue on with that next week. Let's see, hang on. Yeah, that's got quite a bit of reading there. Yeah. So, and this right here is going to do more of the action actuator. Is going to go into more detail of these right here as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Let's go ahead and switch back over. There we go. And we'll start back with more of the animation next week, and we'll continue on with animations. We'll get down to the bottom of chapter 3 and go into animations in chapter 4. This is, like I said, this is all building up. You're getting little bits of pieces, and then you get more pieces, and then you get chapters. And then we'll work with chapters as we go through. All right, so with all that being said and done, got your 30-minute video this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like to ask a question, just write something in the comments down there, or come on over to my server. Right there, it's just down here somewhere. Probably, yeah, that way. Okay, so, is it that way? No, that way. Yeah, there we go. I had to look over here on my OBS. So, if you want to check out my server, come on by. We'd love to have you. So, till next week.